The Andes Mountains, October 13th, 1972. High up in the skies, Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571 has started its preparations to land in what is seemingly its destination, Santiago de Chile. But the inexperienced co-pilot, who was piloting the plane, had just made a terrible mistake. Due to poor weather conditions, he believes that the aircraft is approaching its destination, Pudahuel Airport in Santiago de Chile. Unknown to the pilot, instrument readings show that this flight is still 60 to 69 kilometers east of Curicó and quickly approaching the Andes Mountains. The pilot finally regains visual flight conditions. He realizes his mistake and tries to gain altitude, but a collision is now imminent. The lives of 40 passengers and 5 crew members are at stake. All hope now lies with the pilot to maneuver the aircraft to avoid this terrible tragedy. Will the 45 people aboard this plane manage to land safely? Let's find out. This is the story of Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571. It's a beautiful day at the Carrasco International Airport, Montevideo, Uruguay. Members of the amateur Old Christians Club rugby union team from Montevideo, Uruguay, are scheduled to play a match in Santiago, Chile, against the Old Boys Club, an English rugby team. They've just arrived at the airport and are getting ready to board their flight heading to Chile. As for the extra 10 seats, the team invited friends and family members to accompany them. As part of this route, this flight is scheduled to fly past the Andes Mountains, the longest continental mountain range in the world, with a range of 8,900 kilometers. This range forms a continuous highland along the western edge of South America. The aircraft for the Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571 is an Uruguayan Air Force twin-turboprop Fairchild FH-227D. Manufactured by Fairchild Hiller and introduced in 1958, this aircraft is capable of taking up to 43,500 pounds of weight and is powered by 2 Rolls-Royce Dart RD-8 turboprops and a 4-bladed Rotal constant-speed propeller. This particular aircraft is 4 years old, with 792 hours of flying time on its airframe. The pilots nicknamed it the Lead Sled because it was considered to be underpowered as its fuselage had been stretched to add a 1.83-meter section, increasing passenger capacity from 52 to 56 and making extra room for more cargo between the cockpit and the passenger cabin. The pilot in command for today's flight is Colonel Julio Cesar Ferradas. He's an experienced Air Force pilot with 5,117 hours of flight time. Accompanying him today is co-pilot Lieutenant Colonel Dante Hector Lagurara. Colonel Ferradas had previously flown across the Andes 29 times. On this flight, he's training co-pilot Lagurara, who is in charge of the controls. As soon as everyone had boarded, the plane was cleared for departure and left on October 12, 1972. It's almost 2 hours since the aircraft departed for its destination. As it approaches the Andes, the weather conditions begin to worsen, as there's a visible storm ahead. Flight Captain Colonel Ferradas has to decide what to do next. The first option is to pass through the direct westerly route from Mendoza to Santiago. However, the high mountains, including Mount Aconcagua at 6,959 meters, are near the aircraft service ceiling of 8,500 meters. A service ceiling is the maximum altitude of an aircraft during normal operations. At that point, the rate of climb starts to drop below a prescribed value. Since the plane was loaded to capacity, this route would require the pilot to fly very carefully to avoid the mountains. Seeing that co-pilot Lieutenant Colonel Dante isn't equipped for such rigorous navigation, Ferradas instructs that they make an unscheduled stop at Mendoza International Airport, Mendoza, Argentina, and wait for meteorological conditions to get better before taking the longer 600-kilometer, 90-minute U-shaped route to Malargüe, south of Mendoza, using the A7 airway, then west along the G17 airway, crossing Planchon Pass and on to the Curicó radio beacon in Chile, and from there due north to descend and land in Santiago. By the following day, the weather condition had not improved, but was expected to by the early afternoon. So pilot Ferradas decided to delay the flight till the afternoon. At exactly 2:18 p.m. on Friday, October 13th, Uruguay Air Force Flight 571 took off from Mendoza, flying south towards the Malargüe radio beacon at flight level 5,500 meters. As the aircraft approaches Malargüe Airport, Lagurara radios their position informing them they expect to cross the 2,515-meter-high Planchon Pass at 3:21 p.m. Planchon Pass is the air traffic control handoff point between Chile and Argentina. As the aircraft flew above the Andes, clouds blocked the mountains below, preventing La Gorada and Ferradas from visually confirming their location from the terrain below. Shortly after crossing Planchon Pass, La Gorada notifies air traffic controllers that he expects to reach Curicó a minute later. The distance in flight time from Planchon Pass to Curicó is 11 minutes. However, after just 3 minutes, the co-pilot radios Santiago, stating they're overflying Curicó and turning due north. He proceeds to request permission from the air traffic controller to descend. Unaware, due to lack of radar coverage, that the airplane is still flying over the Andes Mountains, the controller grants authorization to descend to 3,500 meters, with pilot Ferradas failing to also notice the navigational error. This was the beginning of an impending disaster. A few seconds later, the aircraft begins to descend several hundred feet out of the clouds, experiencing severe turbulence. At this point, the rugby players start joking about the turbulence until they discover how close the aircraft is flying to the mountains. Pandemonium sets in almost immediately. It was at this moment the pilot saw the black ridge rising dead ahead. An impact is about to occur. In an attempt to prevent a direct collision, the pilots applied maximum power to gain altitude and climb over the 4,200-meter-high southern ridge of the Glacier Cirque until the plane was almost vertical, causing it to stall and shake. The resulting ground collision alarm sounded as the plane struck the mountain 3 times, scaring all the passengers and further increasing the chaos. After maneuvering, the co-pilot was able to bring the aircraft nose over the ridge, but at 3:34 p.m., the lower part of the tail cone clipped the ridge at 4,200 meters, causing the plane to tilt rightward, resulting in another collision that severed the right wing. As the tail cone falls off, it takes with it the aircraft's rear part, including the rows of seats, the baggage hold, the galley, the horizontal stabilizer, and the vertical stabilizer, leaving a huge hole in the rear area. 3 passengers, the navigator and flight attendant, were lost with the tail section. Cries, shouts, panicking, and chaos continue, while the aircraft's momentum and remaining engine carries it forward until it hits a rock outcropping at 4,400 meters, tearing the aircraft's left wing. As the propeller sliced through the fuselage, 2 more passengers fell out of the gaping hole in the rear. The fuselage then crashed into snow and wobbled 725 meters down a steep glacier slope at 350 kilometers an hour, ramming into a snowbank before stopping. The resulting force caused the seats to break loose from the floor and fall forward against the fuselage bulkhead. Its impact crushed the cockpit, pitting both pilots against the instrument panel, killing Ferradas instantly. Within an hour of the crash, the Chilean Air Search and Rescue Service was notified that Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571 was unaccounted for. Immediately, 4 aircraft started searching for the aircraft based on its last known location on the Curicó corridor from Angostura to Santiago. By 6 p.m., news of the missing flight reached Uruguayan media. After a futile attempt to locate the aircraft and crash site, the Chilean Air Search and Rescue Service listened to recordings of the radio transmissions and concluded the aircraft must have crashed in one of the most remote and inaccessible areas of the Andes. So they asked the Andes Rescue Group of Chile to assist in the search. Unknown to both search teams, the aircraft crashed in Argentina before it crossed into Chile about 21 kilometers from the Hotel Termas El Sosneado, an abandoned hot springs resort. In the aftermath of the crash, co-pilot La Gurara was severely injured from the impact and trapped inside the crushed cockpit. Unable to move and get the needed medical treatment, he died the following day. 33 passengers remained alive, with several of them sustaining serious and life-threatening injuries, ranging from broken legs caused by the impact of the seats against the forward bulkhead to compound fractures. 2 passengers, who were medical students, Canessa and Gustavo Zerbino, helped triage the wounded passengers and first treated those they could help most. Fast forward to the second day after the crash. 11 aircraft from Chile, Argentina, and Uruguay had started searching for the missing aircraft. The search area cut across the accident location and further. Some aircraft flew across the crash site but were unable to locate it. The surviving passengers attempted to use lipstick taken from their luggages to create an SOS message on the roof of the fuselage, But the lipstick wasn't enough to make large letters that the air rescuers could see. Next, they tried to use their luggage to fashion a cross on the snow, but it failed to attract the attention of the rescuers. Watching from below, the survivors saw 3 aircraft fly over the crash site, but they were unable to spot the white fuselage against the snow. After about 8 days of constant searching, the harsh weather conditions gave the search party little hope that they'd find any passenger alive. Having searched for more than 142 hours, on October 21st, the searchers concluded that the chances of anyone surviving the crash were nil and terminated the search. They planned to resume the search to recover the victims in December after the snow melted. The official investigation concluded that the crash was caused by controlled flight into terrain due to pilot error. However, after 2 months of being trapped in the middle of nowhere, 2 of the survivors, Parado and Roberto Canessa, set out across the mountains on December 12th. With the aid of materials found in the aircraft wreck, they climbed 839 meters from the crash site up a 60-degree slope to a 4,503-meter ridge west of the summit of Mount Cellar. From there, they trekked for 10 days, a total of 53.9 kilometers into Chile, before finding help. On the 22nd and 23rd of December 1972, 2.5 months after the crash, the 14 remaining survivors were rescued. If you enjoyed watching this dramatic yet unfortunate air crash story, you won't want to miss the next one.